So now I'm here in Sublime Text, and we want to ask ourselves, how do we add style? How do you add style to your website? So first thing, a couple of things. We're here in Sublime Text. I'm here. I've opened up our file and our document. If you take a look at the way we had our website from our last course, the way our website looks, you see this is the exact website that we have. This is my first website. Now I'm going to format text, our images section, all that's here for our website. And that's according to what we have in our index.html folder. This is the content that we have. And obviously when you look at what you have in terms of your content, your beginner HTML folder should have the index.html and about me page. If you've done more with that and put more content in, it's great. Audio and images, that's what you should have. Now you can ignore this temporary folder I have right here. That's for something I'm going to use a little bit later on. But this is essentially what you should have in your beginner HTML folder. And now we're going to style and ask ourselves a question: how do we style our website? So we're here, we have our content in from HTML and what we've done. And as we've mentioned in chapter 1, in the first chapter of our book in CSS Next Steps, there are a couple different ways you can add style to your website. So one of the things we'll do, one way to add style is almost like an attribute, an inline style. So if I do here and I type style, you can see, you notice that it's an attribute, and Sublime Text is already telling me that. So let's say I want the color of this is my first website to be, I'm going to say color as our property, and I'm going to say red. I want that to be red. So I'll save that, and we'll go over here and take a look at what happens with our document here. If I refresh it and we see what happened, there you have, this is my first website. Our heading and our H1 heading turns to red. So that's exactly the way you do it in terms of an inline style. You can put that information right there in the opening tag of the H1 element, or any element for that matter. Any element you have, you can use the style as an attribute. And you can do more. You can put more than one styler if you want. You can do more than one style. You can put it there. But for right now, we're going to look at, and that's color red. So let's say I wanted to do something else. Let's say I wanted to have a style in addition to what's in this color right here. I wanted to have a style, and I'll say style here. And if I put it up in the head element, it becomes an element itself. So, and I'm going to actually, you don't actually need this type CSS text. You can just get rid of that. We'll just get rid of that part. This actually becomes an element, just like any of the other elements you've had in HTML. And now I can type the same type of information right here. And how I would type that is I would go ahead and I'd put H1, that's my selector. I put a little bracket, you see it gives me a closing bracket. Then I could put whatever I want to put in here. So let's say I wanted to put font family, and I'm going to make this fantasy. That's a certain type of font. I don't have to put any quotation marks here like you have to do for an attribute. I don't have to do that. I just put font family, and we'll see what happens as I go ahead and hit and save that. So if I go over here, back to our document, and I hit refresh, you can see the style of this changes right here. So it automatically changes to font family because that's also being applied. So those are two ways right there you can change or add style to your website. One of the things I want to show you though, if I go right here and I put color, and let's say I want it to be blue instead of red. I put blue. So now I have the H1 color to be blue, but I also have it down here in the H1 in the inline style to be red. Well, to see which one wins out, let's save this. I hit File Save and go over here to our website, and we hit refresh. Well, it goes back to red. And I erased the font. It's still red. I erased the font family. And the reason why it's doing that is even though I have color blue here for H1, I also have color red here. And the red right here will win out because this is an inline style, and this is actually closest to the actual element. So that's kind of the way that CSS works. It allows you to be able to kind of cascade and have an order of importance. There's a whole algorithm. There's a whole lot that goes on behind the scenes, if you will, to determine which rule will win out. But essentially, the general rule is anything that's closest to the element, anything that's within the element, usually wins out over things that are farther away or away from the element. So a heading element right here, the style element, will not win out over an inline element that's right here. We'll talk more about it. There's another way that you can add an important kind of attribute here that will allow you to override everything. But for right now, know that whatever comes closest to the element is what's going to win in terms of the rules, in terms of the cascading rules. And we'll stop for a minute and we'll take a look at how can we now add style with a different style sheet. We'll take a look at that now. So So now we're back here in Sublime Text. We're back here. We want to figure out how can we add style? What's the other way we add style to our website? And obviously we can do that through an external style sheet. And the way you do that is you create a separate CSS file. So what I'm going to do, and this is just in Sublime Text to change the layout here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the layout, go to columns 2. And this allows us, as you can see, to see 2 columns and 2 files at one point in time, which is kind of useful sometimes when you're developing. And what I'm going to go ahead and do here is create a new file. So if I go to here to plain text, I hit CSS, and I'm going to hit File, then I'm going to hit Save. And you automatically see that it gives a .css extension. So it doesn't matter what text editor you're using, as long as you have this .css extension, you're going to be fine. So name it whatever you want to name it. Make sure it's in the beginner HTML folder we've been working with, and name it whatever you're going to name it. So I already have it named, so I'm going to hit Cancel here. Once you hit Save, and you name it, I've named mine style.css, and since I have my cursor here, I'm going to click on style, and you can see the file shows up right here in our CSS file. It shows up right there. And so one of the things I want to show you is this is how you add comments real quick before we go into anything else. This is how you add comments in CSS, just real quickly. You add a slash and an asterisk, and then whatever your comment is, you can add right here, and then you close it with an asterisk and a backslash. Now this is the same kind of concept with comments that we talked about before in HTML, and that the browser will ignore this, and this is notes for you, so you can add clarity to your code. But the way you do it in CSS is a little bit differently. You add the slash and then the asterisk, and then your comments go here, and then you have to close it with the asterisk and the slash right there. So that's how you do it. So what we're going to do here now, and I'll give us a little more room so we can kind of see what we're doing. We're going to go ahead and link to this style sheet. And one of the things I'm going to do right now is I'll go ahead and erase this particular style right here. I'll go ahead and erase this element, and we'll be able to go ahead and link to the style sheet. How you do that is you type link. I'm just going to enter here. You type link rel style sheet. And I'm going to get rid of this type text/CSS. We don't need that in order for this to work. We don't need that right now. And what we have is a link that's a style sheet. The relationship is a style sheet. It's telling the browser, it's going to tell the browser, hey, go look for the style sheet. And we have to tell it what style sheet to look for. So obviously when we have this href attribute, we have to give it more information. And the more information is going to be the file name. So we named it style.css. That's what I named it. It's the same as we have our name over here, style.css, and the style.css right here. And so now this HTML document is linked to this style sheet. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. And so now what I can do is I can add styles here. And if I wanted to, I'm going to pick the body element, the whole body element. I'm going to go here and I'm going to hit background. Let's do background color. And I'm going to say red. So this should change the whole background color to red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this, and we go over here and make sure it's working and test it. We go right up here to our index.html document. We have our H1 element in red. We know that. Let's go ahead and hit refresh, and we see, voila, we'll see that the whole thing changes, the whole background color for the whole body element. And we know the body element includes everything. All the content that you see on the screen is in the body element. Well, now everything in there, the background for it, everything is red. It's turned to red. So we know that it's working. We know that our style sheet has been linked to our index.html document, and then we can use it. And so what I'm going to do now is a couple things just to show you real quick. I'm going to add back in that style element that we had with our H1 color right here. And I'm going to go over here, and let's just get rid of that because that's hard to see. And let me write another rule, another CSS rule for H1. And this time I'm going to pick the color to be green. And as you can see, so we have 3 separate rules here. If I scoop this up, we actually have 3 separate rules. We have in our style sheet, in our HTML index.html document, we have our style sheet link, and we have a rule to make this green for the H1. We have our style element that asks to make it blue, and we have another, our H1 style attribute as an inline style to make this H1 attribute, this H1 element green, or to make it red as a part of this inline style. So which one is going to win out? Given the fact that we have 3 separate rules, one to make it green, blue, and red. So if you look at it, and I have to save my index.html folder here, or file, go back over here, I'm going to hit refresh, and voila, as you might imagine, it's still red. It's going to be red, because if I go back over here to my documents, I see that although I have the H1 to be green here and I have a style element for it to be blue, this inline style red still wins out over any style element that's in the head and any external style sheet. This inline style is closer to the element, is right inside the element's opening tag, and it's going to, in terms of cascading order, in terms of order and importance, it's going to overrule these other style rules that are there, these other rules that are applied to these elements. There is a way that you can add an important tag, if you will, on this that'll overrule everything. But for right now, I just want you to understand that you can have separate rules for the same element, and that in the CSS in the background, there's a whole algorithm that will work out which rule will actually win. And an external style sheet is farthest away from this element, and even this style right here will be overridden by the inline style that we have right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just take this out, the style element. I'm going to erase this because we're going to use this style sheet for the rest of our course, if you will, and be able to style our document. I'm going to take this one out, so we'll have an empty style sheet here. Take that out and save it. We've erased this style element here, and I'm going to go ahead and erase this style attribute from this H1 element. Just put everything back to normal the way we had it before. I'll leave in the link because we want to link to our style sheet. I'm going to go ahead and save it here. And if I go back over to our document, our index.html document, and I refresh, we can see that it's back to normal the way we had it before. All default settings that the browser put in is there. It's back to normal. So what we're going to be able to do now, what it's going to allow us to do is we're going to be able to style the rest of our website by linking to the style sheet that we already have set up, being able to create more styles for our style sheet and for our website moving forward.